Thank you so much, Carlos, for that warm, very kind and probably mostly undeserved introduction. And I want to, it's daybreak here in Vancouver, BC, Canada. And I really want to say a warm welcome to all of my fellow Vancouverites who are on this call, particularly my Y friends, including Steve. And I really also want to thank and acknowledge not only you, Carlos, but Patricia Pelton, who's the president of the World Y and a fellow Canadian who I think is probably on the call now from Calgary, Alberta. And I want to thank all of you for asking me to join you today. This is a very esteemed group, and I feel very humbled and honored to have been asked to be part of the conversation today. And I'm here today with, as Carlos said, with a few hats on. I am indeed the very new president and CEO of a Canadian international and humanitarian organization, Care Canada. And I've made my career in Canada's philanthropic and charitable sector. And like Carlos said, I'm also a very, very proud board member of the YMCA of Greater Vancouver. And I had the wonderful opportunity to go to World Council last summer in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and experience firsthand the power of the Y and the movement. And I came back to Canada with a truly reignited passion for this organization and the unifying and resonant work that everyone in the Y does to empower the world's young people. So you've asked all of us to share today how we're leading our organizations through this time, how we're preparing for a recovery, and we're anticipating what some are calling the new normal, but what I'm increasingly calling the next normal, because I think what we look like coming out of this is going to look very different economically, socially, and culturally to what we look like now. I never thought back in December of 2019, just a few months ago, when I was appointed to the role at CARE, that on April the 1st, 2020, which was my start date, I would start as a CEO of a national organization with our team across the country and around the world, all of us, virtually all of us, working remotely and in the middle of a global health pandemic and an economic collapse. And unfortunately, despite all of the many, many Harvard Business Review classic articles, there is not an article called How to Start as a CEO in the Middle of a Global Pandemic. Maybe I'll write it one day. But for me, the game-changing day was Wednesday, March the 11th. And I was in Ottawa, Ontario, where our Canadian head office is. And I was there for a couple of days to meet the board and the team. And that day, as we went through that board meeting, I'm sure all of you can remember that day of Wednesday, March the 11th, particularly North Americans. And every time we took a break and I checked my phone, a new thing had happened in the world. And at the lunch break, it was the closing of the schools across Ontario. And at the afternoon coffee break, it was the first case of COVID diagnosed in Ottawa. And I went to the airport and I got on the plane to come back to Vancouver, and I landed here about 8 o'clock that night. It was dark, and I turned on my phone and I looked down, and President Trump had declared a national emergency, and the NBA had suspended their season. And I thought to myself, there's something in the world that's changing here. And the next morning when I woke up, it was as though you get up in the morning and you look at life through a scope of some kind, and you have a sense of predictability about what that's going to look like. And in this case, it seems like every day since then has been a kaleidoscope. Every day you look in that scope, it's changed. And the colors have changed, the hues have changed, the prism has changed. I came to CARE, an amazing organization with a rich 75-year legacy of improving the lives of vulnerable people around the world, and particularly for the last 15 years working together to address social injustice and reduce poverty and achieve a more equal world for all of us. And the board hired me with a very clear mandate and a commitment on my part and theirs for me to come in, to spend the first couple of months traveling, meeting our teams around the world, seeing the work that we do, listening and learning and engaging, and then charting a course for this decade and with a new strategic plan in place by 2021. And up until about March the 11th, that all looked really good on paper. And it actually sounded pretty good for me to say. But instead, on April the 1st, I was here in Vancouver, which is my permanent home, working in my home office in the basement of my house and spending many hours a day, like all of you, on Zoom or whatever platform and on the phone, and getting to know an organization and a team and a culture and a board and a mission without the benefit of physical presence and without that sense of knowing that comes from the physical presence of each other and how you get to know people and culture and all of those intangibles. So here we are. It's now April the 30th, very fitting for me that I've come to the end of my first month. It's been a breathless month. It's gone by so quickly. And it's been a little bit like that song out of The King and I, Getting to Know You, but in a very different way. We've had virtual town halls and coffee meetings. I've had many orientations and briefings, meetings with our partners, meeting with our country teams overseas, meeting with partner international organizations, government, getting to know our donors and the people who invest in our cause. And they're getting to know me too. And what I've learned with this kind of CEO start, I've learned a few things about myself. I've learned that I'm an extrovert, and I knew that, but now I really know that I am, because I'm energized by the physical presence of other people and being around them. And the social distancing for me is very hard. I'm having to learn differently and use different muscles in my brain. As a leader and a member of a team, I'm having to read people differently, not overread, not misread. And it's different when you don't have the impact that comes with physical presence. I'm having to listen a lot and a lot differently and let the silence fill the space between our screens. And that can sometimes feel awkward. I've learned about care. I've learned that this is an organization of deeply caring people who believe in our work and the women and girls we're here to serve and improve their lives. And it's an organization populated with smart, thoughtful, ethical, opinionated, courageous, strong, fun people. And I've learned that for all of us, this is a calling. Yes, we're all learning and living in the sense of we work to live, but it's also living to do this work. I've also learned a few things, I think, as a Canadian and as a global citizen, in that this pandemic has truly shown me and underlines, I think, for many of us, the grave social inequities and social injustices, not only here in North America, but that we see around the world globally, particularly the disproportionate impact that it has upon women and girls. But I've also seen over the past 8 weeks remarkable positivity and things out of this crisis that give me huge hope as a citizen and as a leader at CARE, at the Y, from my neighbors, from our communities, and from our governments. I've seen agility, decisiveness, innovation, empathy, and collaboration. At CARE, how we're moving forward has changed. The internal and external context has really been turned on its head. And we're having to approach this strategic planning exercise in a very untextbook fashion. I had the opportunity to participate in a dialogue yesterday with a group of people from Korn Ferry, which is a global consulting firm. And the question they posed to us at the outset of that conversation was, what do we do with this moment? And that was a good question for me. And it's a unique opportunity, as Jonathan said, because in crisis there is opportunity to think about not about what we will be, but what we want to be. And that's about defining a clear and meaningful purpose, defining our organizational capabilities, what we need to be good or even great at in order to achieve the impact in the world that we want to have, and really create value for the people that we're here to serve. And understanding what our stakeholders, the people who believe and need us, what they expect from us in this next normal, and understanding how we can deliver that for them. This crisis is really giving us the opportunity to reinvent ourselves, because I'm not sure that the post-war model of international humanitarian and development work is going to be the same. I think it's undergoing a profound change. And it has been for 10 or 15 years as we shift power to the global south, with the understanding that building long-term resiliency and capacity in the developing world is the way to a more equal world. This crisis is going to accelerate the pace of that change. And we can either be the change or let the change be us. So many things in our society and our communities are going to be different over the next couple of years. Education is going to be different. Healthcare is going to be different. Our workplaces are going to be different. And I think international humanitarian and development work is going to be different too, because this time we can't go there. And we may not be able to do that very much anymore. And so we have to think about how we recreate this work in that next normal, and how we create a more equal world when we are here and we're not there. While the organization is going through change, what isn't going to change is our mission to bring about a more equal world for women and girls, and to give them the tools and the ability to lift up their communities. So thinking back to my conversation with Corn Ferry yesterday, what can we do in this moment? And I don't know the answer to that yet, but we are launching a process of exploration and inquiry and planning at CARE. And what I do know is that we will align around our core priorities of mission and really sharpen our clear and meaningful purpose. We will define our organizational capabilities and what we need to be great or good at in order to deliver on that mission. We will partner with those who share our values, and we will partner with people who want to make a difference and who don't have a lot of organizational ego, because people have needs. Organizations do not have needs. The job of organizations is to meet the needs of people. We will be unafraid to explore what the new world of humanitarian work looks like. We will make mistakes along the way, and unapologetically so. We will correct them, and we will keep moving. And we will go where the energy is, because that is where we will get traction, because that is what will advance our mission, and because that will enable more girls and women to flourish. So I want to close with a thought that I want to thank Jonathan for, that he gave to me when we had a conversation to get to know each other a couple of days ago. Uncharacteristically for me, it's from the book of Esther. And in the book of Esther, they talk about being somewhere for such a time as this. And I really believe that I am here for such a time as this. This is a defining moment in the world, and it's a defining moment for CARE, where I've chosen to make my life work right now. And I've been given this opportunity at this time to make a difference. And I truly believe that for such a time as this, I'm where I'm meant to be. Thank you, Carlos, and thank you, everybody.
How are you coping? How are you taking care of both the body, mind, spirit in all this? How is it going with you?
Yeah. I think probably like a lot of people, I find I'm spending a lot of my day like this, in front of a screen. Mm-hmm. And that is it's a bit of an inert feeling, much more than I'm used to. I'm usually a very active person, but I find that I can give my best to this and the work endeavor if I also have time every day for some exercise, for some reflection, and for some time to connect with family and friends. Those are really the combination of things. And I would be not honest with you, Carlos, if I didn't say that probably once or twice a week, I do dive into YouTube for about 15 minutes. And I just watch whatever pops up. And I have to make that confession.
Yeah. Next question is to Barbara. It's coming from Sri Lanka. Say, as Barbara said, after the world defeat COVID, it will be totally different world. It means we are not going back to the so-called normalcy which prevailed before COVID-19. then what is this world going to be, and how organizations like YMCA could contribute to this new world?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if anybody knows what this new world is going to be. I think there's a few things that are becoming more clear as the weeks pass into months, and that is that the bounce back, if you like, economically and socially, is not going to be quick. This changed reality, I think, is going to be with us for some time. Whatever industry you work in, whatever kind of used to be your life, it isn't going to go back to that soon. But what it's going to look like in 21, 22, I don't know. Certain industries are going to obviously fundamentally change. I think when I look at the Y, I think we're, here in Vancouver, we're delivering many programs now virtually that we weren't a few weeks ago. That wasn't even on our horizon. And so the whole way, I think that even the Y as a movement thinks about how we do the Y's work is going to change. But I guess my best thought, my most optimistic thought, is that it's not to just wait and let circumstances and conditions and other forces indicate or dictate what that next normal is going to look like. We all have the capability and the power and the intelligence and the kindness, to use Cynthia's beautiful word, to create a better world out of this, to create a more socially equal and just world, to create a kinder world, to create a cleaner, more environmentally sustainable world. And we need to marshal. We need to marshal our own individual capabilities and the capabilities of people around us to make that happen. We start 30 minutes from now when this wonderful conversation ends.
The question is, how do you balance the need to be realistic in planning and team dialogue with fostering hope, faith, and inspiration? There are the two levels of things. One is very technical, bureaucratic approach that I think one of these, Jonathan will say, pray like is on the hand of God, but work hard. That's part of working hard. But how do we balance with fostering hope, faith, and inspiration?
I'm not sure I have the answer to that. And I think any of the other, Carlos, you or Cynthia or Roger, Jonathan can also probably share much more eloquent thoughts on that than me. I think that's the reality that all of us straddle every day. Particularly, that's often what we look to our leaders for. We've got every day now we've got political leaders and public health leaders who come out into a news conference and they walk up in front of a microphone and they're really doing two things. They are conveying factual information and data and technical responses and public policy responses to this crisis to us. And at the same time, threading through all of those words, they're trying to help all of us find hope and inspiration and community together. And that's a gift. That's a gift that I would love to possess in abundant form. But I think it's a combination of things. I think it's an understanding of sort of the core fundamentals of what makes a great team come together. How do you build a structure around a team that's nimble and flexible and adaptable and agile, and at the same time having a capacity for storytelling and for tapping into human emotion and being able to convey the organizational purpose, sometimes in very dry language, and sometimes through the power of storytelling and in a different kind of human connection. That would be my thought.
They say this pandemic have created some really positive change into the environment. How can the YMCA support global policy to sustain the good and defend going back to poor practice? So how can YMCA play a role in protecting this environment using this opportunity?
That's a really great question, and maybe a lovely note to end on, because for me, what the Y is about fundamentally is community. And we've thought about community through the Y lens, I think, primarily in the sense of place. It's a camp, it's a gym, it's an employment center, it's a welcoming center, it's a childcare program, but it's a physical place. And I think that will continue once we're through this. That will recreate and reinvigorate itself. But I also think the Y has done a remarkable job already and will continue to really push the envelope of how we define and think about community. And we've created in a matter of weeks here communities of mental health. We've created communities of physical well-being. We've created communities for newcomers to come together with those of us who've been here for longer periods of time. We are showing our own agility and our own ability to think differently and to use neuroscience, as Raj said, to change some of our behaviors in many, many positive ways. And I think the Y is a core organization that's going to be really fundamental in helping all of us navigate to find a better world on the other side of this.
What are your keywords you will leave us with?
Thank you. I feel really blessed to have been able to start my day with such a wonderful community of people. And I want to thank you, Carlos, and everyone at the Y and everybody around the world in the Y movement for what you do every day. So whether you're about to go to bed or like me, you're about to start the day, I hope everybody takes away something from this about how we make a better world. We have to do it together.